You picked the wrong black woman to harass today. Major General Victoria Taylor's voice remains steady, eerily calm, as Officer Harris twists her arm behind her back with unnecessary force. Metal cuffs snap around her wrists, too tight, deliberately tight. The steel bites into her skin, drawing blood that trickles warm down her palm. Talking back to an officer. Captain Wilson looms over her, his shadow falling across her face like a threat. That's how people like you end up with real problems. Taylor doesn't flinch. She memorizes his badge number 4572, his name tag, the small mole above his left eyebrow. Every detail, every feature, evidence. Check her for weapons, Wilson commands, stepping back with his arms crossed. Harris jabs her ribs during the search, sharp, painful prods that have nothing to do with procedure and everything to do with punishment. He finds her wallet, her keys, her phone. He tosses them carelessly into a clear evidence bag, the items scattering like discarded trash. "Something funny?" Wilson demands when he notices the slight curve at the corner of her mouth. Not a smile, just composure that infuriates him. Taylor says nothing. Silence is its own kind of power. What they don't know, what they can't know, is that they miss something. Hidden in the lining of her jacket, pressed against her rib cage, is a military-grade communications device. Small, sophisticated, recording every word, every violation, every second of this encounter. "Get her in the car," Wilson barks, his voice echoing across the checkpoint. A night in holding should fix that attitude. They shove her head down with unnecessary force, pushing her roughly into the back of the cruiser. The door slams shut with a metallic clang that reverses through the night air. They have no idea who they've just arrested. Before we go deeper into this story, take a second and hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and let us know where you're watching from in the comments. I'm curious to know how far these stories travel. Fluorescent lights buzz overhead, harsh and unforgiving. The processing room at Greenfield Police Station smells of stale sweat, old coffee, and industrial cleaning chemicals that can't quite mask the underlying scent of fear and desperation that clings to these walls. Victoria Taylor stands perfectly still for her mugshot, chin level, eyes forward. The camera clicks, a sound that will haunt Wilson and Harris soon enough, but for very different reasons than they imagine. Name. The booking officer doesn't look up from his computer screen, fingers poised over the keyboard with practiced boredom. Victoria Taylor. Address. She provides her Maple Avenue address clearly, enunciating each word. The officer pauses. His fingers freeze over the keys. His eyes narrow as he finally looks up at her. That's in Westfield Heights. His tone changes immediately, a shift so subtle yet so profound. Recognition. Judgment. Assumption. Taylor presses her thumb against the fingerprint scanner. Black ink stains her skin, marking her as processed, cataloged, entered into a system designed to diminish rather than protect. Behind her, by the water cooler, Officers Wilson and Harris share a laugh, their voices carried deliberately, meant to be overheard. "Another one from that neighborhood," Harris says, his voice dripping with contempt. "Thinking she's special." "Acting like the checkpoint doesn't apply to her," Wilson replies, taking a long sip from his disposable cup. "Had to put her in her place." Harris nods, leaning against the wall with casual arrogance. "These people need to learn." Taylor memorizes every word, every inflection, every face watching her processing with either indifference or barely concealed satisfaction. The watch hidden beneath her sleeve continues its silent work, recording, transmitting, building a case that will dismantle everything these men represent. "Phone call," she says to the booking officer. He points to the wall phone without looking at her. "One call. Make it count." Taylor crosses to the phone. The receiver is cold against her ear. The buttons worn from thousands of desperate fingers dialing lawyers, family members, anyone who might care that they've disappeared into the system. She dials a number from memory. Not her lawyer, not family. Operations Center, Pentagon. The voice that answers is crisp, professional, alert despite the late hour. Authorization code Tango Delta 7904. Taylor speaks clearly, her voice carrying just enough for the officers nearby to hear without understanding the significance. A pause. Computer keys clicking rapidly in the background. Confirmed, General Taylor. Response team deploying. Timeline, 43 minutes. She hangs up. Councilman Edward Bennett storms into the station at that exact moment, his expensive suit immaculate, even at this late hour. His championship ring, probably from some college sport he hasn't played in decades, catches the harsh fluorescent light as he gestures toward Taylor through the glass partition. Another troublemaker, Bennett demands, his voice carrying the weight of political authority and civic power. Wilson straightens, suddenly deferential. Yes, sir. Just processing her now. Good. Bennett's eyes rake over Taylor with cold assessment. These checkpoint resistors need consequences. The program is too important to let people undermine it with their attitudes. Taylor is escorted to a holding cell. The door clangs shut, a sound designed to break spirits, to remind prisoners of their powerlessness. She sits on the metal bench, back straight, face composed. The clock on the wall reads 9:17 p.m. In exactly 43 minutes, everything will change. 2 hours earlier, the sun was setting over Westfield Heights, painting the sky in shades of orange and deep purple. General Victoria Taylor drove her modest sedan through familiar streets, streets where children played on front porches, where neighbors called greetings to each other, where life happened in all its ordinary, beautiful complexity. The neighborhood transitions gradually as she drives. Westfield Heights, predominantly black, with its older homes and working-class families. Then the border. Then Greenfield, whiter, wealthier, with manicured lawns and two-car garages, and an unspoken assumption that some people belong and others don't. Blue lights flash ahead. Police cruisers block the road, forming a checkpoint that shouldn't exist in a free country. Taylor slows, her window already rolling down. She's done nothing wrong. This should take seconds. License check, brief exchange, continue on her way. Officer Harris approaches, his flashlight beam sweeping aggressively across her face, momentarily blinding her. License and registration. Taylor reaches slowly, deliberately, for her glove compartment. May I ask what this checkpoint is for, officer? Harris stiffens. Just routine. ID now. She hands over her driver's license. Harris studies it, his flashlight lingering on her address like it's evidence of something criminal in itself. Westfield Heights resident, he says into his radio, his emphasis unmistakable. Requesting additional verification. Taylor notices the emphasis, the tone, the immediate assumption that her address requires additional verification when the white couple in the car ahead of her pass through in under 30 seconds. Is there a problem with my identification, officer? Wait here. Harris walks back to the cruiser, her license in hand. Taylor watches through her rearview mirror. Harris shows her license to another officer. They both look at her car. They both laugh. That casual, cruel laugh of men who believe themselves untouchable. Captain Wilson emerges from the command vehicle like he's been waiting for exactly this moment. Harris points at Taylor's car. Wilson nods, approaching with deliberate slowness, a predator who knows his prey has nowhere to run. Step out of the vehicle, ma'am. His tone strips the ma'am of any respect, turning courtesy into condescension. May I ask why? My license is valid. Step out, now. Wilson's hand rests on his holster, a threat barely veiled as procedure. We're implementing enhanced search protocol. Taylor knows her rights. She knows the law better than most attorneys. Enhanced search requires reasonable suspicion of criminal activity. What's your suspicion, Captain? Wilson's face hardens, his jaw clenching. Out of the car. Taylor complies, her movements deliberate and visible. I'd like to note that this appears to be selective enforcement. We decide what's selective, Wilson says, gesturing toward her car. Hands on the hood. I decline consent to search my vehicle without probable cause. Taylor's voice remains calm, professional, clear. Terry v. Ohio and Delaware v. Prowse establish clear guidelines for... Look at the lawyer here, Harris mocks, moving closer, invading her personal space. Thinks she knows the law. I'm familiar with my Fourth Amendment rights. Wilson steps closer, close enough that she can smell the coffee on his breath. Your kind always want to make things difficult. My kind? Taylor raises an eyebrow. Troublemakers, Wilson clarifies. But his meaning hangs transparent in the humid evening air, as clear as the racial demographics of who gets stopped at these checkpoints and who doesn't. Other drivers watch from their cars. Some pull out phones, starting to record. Wilson notices immediately, gesturing sharply to another officer. Clear these vehicles through. No recordings. Taylor observes Officer Davis approaching the waiting cars, making people put their phones away, erasing the digital witnesses to whatever's about to happen. She commits each face to memory, each badge number, each license plate, evidence. Last chance, Wilson says. Consent to search or face obstruction charges. I respectfully decline and request a supervisor. Wilson's smile is cold. I am the supervisor. He signals to Harris with a slight nod. Detain her. Harris grabs Taylor's arm, twisting it behind her back. The pain shoots through her shoulder, sharp, deliberate, excessive. Stop resisting, Harris shouts, though she isn't resisting. I'm not resisting, Taylor says clearly, loudly, creating an audio record for anyone within earshot. I'm complying under protest. Wilson steps closer. You don't tell us how to do our jobs. Taylor notices Harris's body camera. The red recording light blinks off. Your body camera appears to be malfunctioning, Officer Harris, she notes calmly. Mind your own business. Harris tightens his grip, cutting off circulation. Taylor's military training kicks in. Years of hand-to-hand combat, tactical response, threat neutralization. She could disable both officers in seconds, could have Harris on the ground before Wilson's hand reached his holster. But that's not why she's here. That's not tonight's mission. I'll be filing a formal complaint, she says instead. Wilson laughs, a harsh, dismissive sound. Good luck with that. Councilman Bennett personally oversees checkpoint operations. Your complaint goes straight to his trash can. Taylor's watch presses against her wrist. The military-grade device captures every word, every admission, every piece of evidence of a system designed not to protect, but to control. Search the car, Wilson orders. Another officer approaches Taylor's vehicle. Sir, without a warrant. We have checkpoint authority under City Ordinance 27-9, Wilson interrupts, signed by the council last month. Taylor knows the ordinance, knows its constitutional flaws, knows exactly who pushed it through and why. Find anything? Wilson calls to the officer searching her car. Clean, sir. Wilson seems disappointed. Check under the seats. These Westfield people always hiding something. Taylor's fingers discreetly press a button on her watch. The GPS tracker activates. Pentagon systems now monitor her location in real time, tracking every movement, every location, building a digital trail of evidence. Nothing, sir, the officer reports, emerging from her car. Wilson turns back to Taylor. Well, you're still interfering with a lawful checkpoint. That's obstruction. Citing constitutional protections is not obstruction, Taylor counters. And now arguing with an officer. Wilson nods to Harris. Cuff her. The metal cuffs bite into her wrists. Harris secures them too tight, deliberately tight, cutting into skin already raw from the initial grab. Victoria Taylor, you're under arrest for obstruction of justice and resisting a lawful checkpoint inspection. Wilson recites the charges with satisfaction. Taylor notices a young woman in a nearby car, still recording discreetly, despite Officer Davis's orders. Their eyes meet briefly. Taylor gives an imperceptible nod. Keep recording. Keep watching. This matters. You have the right to remain silent, Wilson continues. I'm aware of my Miranda rights, Captain. I assume you're transporting me to the Greenfield station? Wilson pauses, thrown by her composure. By the way, she refuses to perform the role they've assigned her. That's right. I'll need my phone call when we arrive. You'll get what we decide to give you, Harris says, shoving her roughly toward the cruiser. As they lead her away, Taylor glances back at the checkpoint. Officer Davis waves through another Westfield Heights resident for additional screening. 3 cars with white drivers pass without stopping. Pattern established. Evidence accumulating. Harris pushes her head down, forcing her into the back seat with unnecessary roughness. Officer Harris, badge number 4572, Taylor states clearly. That use of force is unnecessary and excessive. Shut up, Harris snaps, slamming the door hard enough to make the cruiser rock. Through the window, Taylor watches Wilson speaking with another officer. He gestures toward Westfield Heights, laughs. That same casual cruelty she's documented 100 times in reports, witnessed in data, heard in testimonies. The cruiser pulls away from the checkpoint. Taylor sits calmly in the back seat, her hands cuffed behind her, her mind reviewing the Pentagon protocol she's just activated. The situation is proceeding exactly as anticipated. Sometimes, to expose a corrupt system, you have to let it trap you first. The interrogation room at Greenfield Police Station smells of stale coffee and industrial floor cleaner, that harsh chemical scent that burns the nose. A single overhead light casts harsh shadows across the metal table bolted to the floor. Taylor sits in the uncomfortable chair, back straight, despite the awkward position, forced by the handcuffs still digging into her wrists. 2 hours have passed since her arrest. 2 hours of processing, of being photographed and fingerprinted and cataloged like evidence rather than a human being. The door opens. Captain Wilson enters carrying a thin folder and Taylor's confiscated belongings. He drops them on the table with deliberate carelessness. Her wallet, her keys, her phone scattering across the metal surface. Comfortable? His smile doesn't reach his eyes. Taylor doesn't respond. In interrogations, silence is power. The less she says, the more they reveal. Wilson opens the folder. Victoria Taylor, Westfield Heights address, no priors. He looks up. First time being educated about checkpoint compliance? I'd like to speak with an attorney. Soon enough. Wilson circles the table slowly, like a shark sensing blood. We're just having a conversation first. I invoke my right to counsel. Taylor's voice remains level, precise, creating a clear legal record. Wilson ignores her. See, we have a problem in this town. People who don't respect authority. People who think rules don't apply to them. He leans against the wall, studying her face for any crack in her composure. Checkpoints keep Greenfield safe. Some folks don't like being checked. Those folks usually have something to hide. Taylor remains silent. Her military training included advanced resistance to interrogation techniques. Wilson's amateur intimidation tactics wouldn't break a first-year cadet, let alone a general with 3 decades of service. Nothing to say? Wilson flips through her wallet with feigned curiosity. Interesting ID you've got here. He pulls out her military ID, studies it with exaggerated attention, then snorts dismissively. Marine Corps, General, 4 stars. He tosses it onto the table like trash. Nice fake. We'll be adding impersonating military personnel to your charges. Taylor watches him carefully, memorizing every procedural violation, every failed Miranda compliance, every civil rights infringement. That identification is authentic. Right, Wilson laughs, and I'm the Secretary of Defense. His phone buzzes. He checks the screen, nods slightly. Our concerned citizen is here, Wilson says, moving to the door. Someone wants to meet the latest checkpoint troublemaker. Taylor's photographic memory catalogs everything: the time, the violations, the deliberate refusal to provide counsel, the mockery of her military service. Wilson leaves. Through the thin walls, Taylor hears a new voice, authoritative, impatient, accustomed to being obeyed. Another one from that neighborhood? The voice must belong to Councilman Bennett. Yes, sir, Wilson responds. Gave us the usual constitutional speech. Had a fake military ID, too. Military? Bennett sounds interested. What branch? Marines. Claims to be a general. Wilson's laugh carries through the wall. Get what you need and process her, Bennett says. Make an example. These checkpoint resistors are undermining the whole program. Taylor notices the one-way glass, feels Bennett watching from the other side, studying the woman who dared question his authority. The door opens again. Wilson returns with Officer Harris. Let's try again. Wilson slaps a form on the table. Sign this confession to obstruction. Take a misdemeanor charge and you'll be out by morning. Taylor studies the document without touching it, reading the legally binding language designed to strip her of the right to sue, to complain, to challenge. I'll need my attorney present before signing anything. Harris steps forward, positioning himself behind Taylor's chair. Captain asked you nicely, and I respectfully declined. Wilson nods to Harris, who moves closer, his presence meant to intimidate, to make her feel trapped, vulnerable, afraid. You people from Westfield Heights think you're special, Wilson says. Think the rules don't apply. But Councilman Bennett's checkpoint program has cut crime in Greenfield by 30%. By targeting specific neighborhoods, Taylor asks. Wilson's expression hardens. By enforcing the law where it needs enforcing. Selective enforcement isn't legal enforcement. Harris places heavy hands on her shoulders, a physical threat, an assertion of power. You should listen to the captain. Taylor doesn't react to the physical intimidation. I believe this interview is over until my counsel arrives. Wilson collects her belongings, then intentionally drops her military ID on the floor. He steps on it as he walks around the table, a gesture of contempt, of disbelief, of everything wrong with the system. This little military costume doesn't impress me, he sneers, picking up the ID and examining it with mock admiration. Though I admire the attention to detail. 4 stars, ambitious fake. He tosses the ID back on the table. Harris increases pressure on Taylor's shoulders. Not enough to leave visible bruises, but enough to cause pain, to remind her of her powerlessness in this moment. We've got all night, Wilson says. Plenty of time for you to reconsider that signature. A sharp knock interrupts. The door opens immediately. Detective David Morales stands in the doorway. His expression shifts from professional to confused as he takes in the scene. The handcuffed woman, the intimidation tactics, the obvious violation of procedure. Captain, Morales says carefully. A moment outside. Wilson hesitates, then nods to Harris. Watch her. The door closes behind them. Through the wall, Taylor hears urgent whispers. The conversation grows heated. Morales' voice insistent, Wilson's defensive. Someone knocks urgently on the interrogation room door. The door opens. Detective Morales enters, followed by a visibly agitated Captain Wilson. Morales, mid-30s, with observant eyes and the bearing of someone who still believes in justice, carries himself differently than the other officers. His badge hangs from a chain around his neck. His suit, while department issue, fits properly, suggesting someone who takes pride in his work for the right reasons. "Officer Harris, you're needed at the front desk," Morales says firmly. Harris looks to Wilson, who nods reluctantly. Harris leaves, closing the door firmly behind him. Morales approaches the table. He picks up Taylor's military ID, examining it closely under the harsh fluorescent light. "Captain, this ID has proper security features," Morales says, his voice carrying professional certainty. "The holographic seal, the micro-printing, the UV watermarks, all authentic military issue." Wilson scoffs. "It's a good fake." "No, sir." Morales places the ID gently on the table, treating it with the respect it deserves. "I served before joining the department. This is genuine." Wilson's confidence wavers momentarily, like ice cracking under sudden weight. "So she stole a military ID. Add it to the charges." "Ma'am," Morales addresses Taylor directly, his voice respectful. "May I ask your name and rank?" "General Victoria Taylor, United States Marine Corps." Morales straightens instinctively. Military bearing doesn't fade with time, doesn't disappear just because you hang up the uniform. "And what brings you to Greenfield, General?" Morales asks. Before Taylor can answer, Wilson interrupts sharply. "Detective, she's being processed for obstruction and checkpoint evasion. Her occupation is irrelevant." "Sir, if she's active military, we have jurisdictional protocols to follow," Morales counters. "Department policy specifically requires—" "I'm handling this case, Detective." "Captain, department policy requires verification of military credentials. Section 14 of our procedural manual specifically states—" "I know the manual," Wilson snaps. "Then you know we're already in violation of proper procedure." Morales doesn't back down. "No attorney present despite request. Continued questioning after rights invocation. Extended detention without proper processing." Wilson's jaw tightens, muscles clenching visibly. "Detective, remember your place." "My place is ensuring department procedures are followed, sir," Morales replies evenly. He turns back to Taylor's ID, examining the rank insignia more closely. His eyes widen. "Sir," Morales whispers, "these are 4 stars." "So?" 4 stars is the highest rank in the Marine Corps." Morales looks at Taylor with new understanding, with the dawning realization of exactly how badly Wilson has miscalculated. There are only a handful in the entire military. Wilson's confidence cracks further. It's still a fake. Before we continue, take a second and share your thoughts so far on what Victoria is going through. Tell me in the comments, if you were in her position, knowing you had the power to stop this but choosing to let it play out to expose the truth, could you have stayed that calm? I read every single one. The interrogation room door swings open without warning. Councilman Edward Bennett enters without knocking, because men like him don't knock, don't wait for permission, don't believe rules apply to them. His tailored suit probably costs more than most Westfield Heights residents make in a month. His signet ring catches the light, gold, heavy, ostentatious. Everything about him projects authority, wealth, power. "Captain, what's the delay?" Bennett demands, his eyes scanning the room before settling on Taylor with practiced political calculation. "I thought this was routine processing." "Councilman Bennett," Morales says carefully, choosing his words with the precision of someone walking through a minefield. "We have a situation. This woman appears to be a high-ranking military officer." Bennett scoffs. "Based on what?" "Military identification consistent with a Marine Corps general," Morales explains. "We need to verify through proper channels before proceeding." "Detective." Bennett checks Morales' nameplate with deliberate slowness. "Your concern for procedure is noted. Now let the captain handle this." Morales stands his ground. "Sir, with respect, If we've detained a military general improperly, the department faces serious repercussions. If, Bennett emphasizes, his voice dripping with skepticism. A remarkably big if. He turns to Wilson. Captain, handle the paperwork and process her. He waves dismissively at Morales. Detective, you're needed elsewhere. Sir, Morales protests. Standard protocol is what I say it is, Bennett interrupts coldly. The checkpoint program operates under special city ordinance, my ordinance. Taylor watches Morales carefully. She sees the moment his professional ethics confront political reality. That terrible choice between doing what's right and keeping your job, between protecting the Constitution and protecting your career. Councilman, Morales says carefully, may I at least verify her identity through military channels? A simple phone call? Bennett studies Morales like he's examining an insect under glass. You're new to Greenfield, aren't you, Detective? Transferred 6 months ago, sir. Then let me explain how things work here. Bennett steps closer, invading Morales' personal space. The checkpoint program is essential to Greenfield's safety and property values. Occasional complaints are expected. They're handled quietly and quickly. By violating rights? Morales asks. Bennett's smile turns cold, the kind of cold that comes from years of getting away with exactly what he's doing now. By maintaining order. Don't overthink your role, Detective. The phone on the wall suddenly rings, shattering the tension. All three turn toward it. Wilson answers. Captain Wilson. He listens, his frown deepening. What kind of call? His expression shifts from annoyance to confusion. From where? Wilson's face pales slightly. He hangs up. What is it? Bennett demands. Front desk has received calls asking about a General Taylor, Wilson says slowly. From whom? Bennett asks. Wilson swallows hard. The Pentagon. The room falls silent. The kind of silence that feels like the moment before an avalanche. Bennett and Wilson exchange glances, the first hint of genuine worry creeping into their eyes. Probably her friends playing games, Bennett dismisses, but his voice lacks conviction. Captain, finish processing and... Sir, Wilson interrupts something he's never done before. They mentioned her by name and rank. They knew she was here. Bennett turns to Taylor, reassessing with the rapid calculation of a politician sensing shifting ground. Morales' eyes widen as he looks between the 4-star insignia on Taylor's ID and the dawning reality on Wilson's and Bennett's faces. Sir, Morales says quietly, do you realize who we've arrested? Bennett silences him with a sharp gesture. Captain, verify this properly, now. Wilson exits quickly. Bennett studies Taylor with new caution, the political mask slipping to reveal genuine concern. If you are military, Bennett says carefully, you should understand the importance of security checkpoints. I understand constitutional rights, Taylor replies calmly, and selective enforcement. Bennett's political smile returns, but it doesn't reach his eyes. General, if that's what you are, surely we can resolve this misunderstanding amicably. The phone rings again. Wilson answers from outside, his voice carrying through the door. Yes, sir. Yes, she's here. No, sir, I understand. Sir. Wilson returns, visibly shaken. His confidence has evaporated completely. That was Colonel Jackson from the Pentagon Military Police, Wilson says quietly. They've confirmed her identity. Excellent, Bennett recovers quickly, slipping back into political mode. Then release the general immediately, with our apologies for the misunderstanding. There's more, Wilson says. They're sending representatives here. Now. Bennett's political mask slips again. What representatives? A military investigation unit, Wilson says. They specifically mentioned your checkpoint program, sir. Bennett turns to Taylor slowly, understanding dawning in his eyes like sunrise revealing a landscape of devastation. This wasn't a coincidence, he realizes. Your presence at the checkpoint. Taylor meets his gaze steadily. The mission doesn't require explanation. The evidence speaks for itself. The station's front desk phone begins to ring. Then another line. Then another. Persistent ringing echoes through the station, multiple lines lighting up across desks like an alarm system. Bennett moves to the interrogation room door, closing it firmly. His political composure cracks further. "What exactly is happening here?" he demands. Taylor remains silent. Wilson's radio crackles. "Captain, we have multiple incoming calls. Pentagon, DOJ, Governor's Office." "Handle it," Bennett snaps. "Sir," Wilson responds, his voice thin with barely controlled panic. "They're specifically asking about General Taylor." Morales watches this exchange with growing awareness. He moves closer to Taylor. "Would you like those handcuffs removed, General?" he asks quietly. Bennett glares at him. "Detective, step back." "Sir, she's been confirmed as a military general," Morales argues. "Continuing to detain her is my decision," Bennett interrupts. He points at Taylor. "Whatever game you're playing ends now." Taylor finally speaks, her voice calm, measured, carrying the weight of authority earned through decades of service. "This isn't a game, Councilman. It's an investigation." "Investigation?" Bennett laughs, but uncertainty edges his voice. "Into what?" "Systematic civil rights violations through discriminatory checkpoint practices," Taylor states clearly. "Targeting minority neighborhoods, violating Fourth Amendment protections, implementing quotas based on race and district." Bennett's face hardens. "Ridiculous accusations." "Documented accusations," Taylor corrects. Wilson's radio crackles again. "Captain, military vehicles approaching the station." Bennett's political calculation visibly shifts to self-preservation. He turns to Wilson. "Release her, now. Claim miscommunication. Blame the officers who made the arrest." Wilson hesitates. "Sir, Harris followed your checkpoint protocols exactly." "Then blame the protocols," Bennett hisses. "Just contain this." Morales steps forward, removing a small key from his pocket. He unlocks Taylor's handcuffs with gentle, respectful hands. "My apologies, General," he says formally. Bennett watches with growing alarm. "Detective, prepare the necessary paperwork for the General's immediate release." Morales nods but makes no move to leave. "Now, Detective," Bennett insists. "In a moment, sir." Morales turns to Taylor. "General, may I ask what happens next?" Taylor rubs her wrists where the cuffs bit into her skin, where dried blood has crusted around the impressions left by too tight metal. "Justice happens next, Detective Morales." Bennett laughs nervously. "A simple misunderstanding doesn't require such dramatics." 6 months of documented civil rights violations isn't a misunderstanding, Taylor replies. Morales looks between them. 6 months? Taylor nods. The Pentagon has been monitoring Greenfield's checkpoint program since its implementation, gathering evidence, building a case. She checks her watch. And now that case is complete. Wilson's radio crackles once more. "Captain, 3 black SUVs have entered the parking lot. Military personnel disembarking." Bennett moves to the door. "I need to make some calls." "Your calls won't help, Councilman," Taylor says. "This investigation has federal oversight." Bennett's hand freezes on the doorknob. The political mask shatters completely, revealing fear. Morales steps closer to Taylor. He discreetly slides a USB drive across the table, his hand covering the movement. "Internal Affairs has been looking into the checkpoint program," he whispers, "but we kept hitting roadblocks. Administrative obstruction. Evidence of direct interference." "Direct interference?" Taylor asks quietly. Morales nods. "Everything I could gather. checkpoint locations, arrest demographics, internal communications. "It's time, General," he whispers. The interrogation room door swings open. A military officer in full-dress uniform enters, followed by 2 MPs in crisp fatigues. The Silver Eagle insignia identifies him as Colonel Jackson. Colonel Jackson surveys the room, his gaze stopping on Taylor. He salutes crisply. "General Taylor." "Colonel." Taylor returns the salute, military precision restored after hours of civilian detention. "Thank you for the prompt response." "Of course, ma'am." Jackson turns to the others, his voice carrying command authority. "I'm Colonel Jackson, Pentagon Investigative Services. These are my associates. I'll need everyone to remain in the station. My team will have questions shortly." Bennett steps forward, political smile reinstated like armor. "Councilman Edward Bennett, Greenfield City Council. This has been an unfortunate misunderstanding." "Sir," Jackson interrupts with military efficiency, "please remain in the station. My team will have questions for you shortly." Bennett's smile falters. "Questions? I assure you I had no knowledge of the General's improper detention." "Noted," Jackson says without inflection. He turns to Wilson. "Captain, secure this room for the General's use. We'll need your main conference room for our team." Wilson hesitates. "Colonel, this is a police station. You don't have jurisdiction." "I have direct authorization from the Secretary of Defense." Jackson cuts him off. "Your cooperation is not optional." The station fills with controlled activity. Military personnel set up equipment in the conference room. Computer specialists access the station systems. Evidence collection teams secure records with methodical precision. Bennett watches with growing alarm. This response seems excessive for a simple detention issue. Taylor stands, straightening her civilian clothes, every inch the General despite the crumpled fabric and dried blood on her wrists. "This isn't about my detention, Councilman. It's about what my detention represents." She turns to Colonel Jackson. "Status report?" "Teams deployed as ordered, General. Evidence preservation protocols in effect. A Pentagon liaison briefing the governor now." Bennett attempts to leave. 2 MPs politely but firmly direct him back. "This is outrageous," he protests, "and I have rights." "Yes," Taylor agrees. "Everyone does. That's precisely the point." Taylor and Jackson move to the conference room, now transformed into a command center. Digital displays show checkpoint locations throughout Greenfield, all strategically positioned between Westfield Heights and the wealthier white neighborhoods. Red dots cluster on the map like a disease. Morales follows, carrying case files he's apparently been maintaining for months. "General, I've brought the internal documentation you requested." "Thank you, Detective," Taylor says. "Your assistance is invaluable." Bennett and Wilson are escorted in, directed to seats away from each other, a deliberate choice to prevent them from coordinating stories. Harris joins them, confusion and growing fear evident on his face. Taylor stands at the head of the table. The room falls silent. "Gentlemen," she begins, her voice carrying the calm authority of someone who has commanded thousands. 6 months ago, the Pentagon received multiple complaints about a police checkpoint program targeting minority neighborhoods in Greenfield. Initial review suggested Fourth Amendment violations. Further investigation revealed something more disturbing. She activates the main display. A map appears showing checkpoint arrest statistics. Red dots cluster exclusively in minority neighborhoods. A visual representation of systematic discrimination. "Selective enforcement," Taylor continues. "Checkpoint stops resulting in searches. 89% minority drivers. Arrests from those stops, 94% minority citizens." Wilson shifts uncomfortably. "Crime statistics justify deployment." "Traffic violations occur at equal rates across demographics," Taylor interrupts smoothly. "Yet your checkpoint program produced these results." She changes the display. Internal police emails appear. blown up large enough for everyone to read. Captain Wilson, this is your message to officers dated March 12th. Focus on vehicles from Westfield Heights. Higher yield for arrests. Wilson pales. That's taken out of context. Context is provided by your arrest quotas, Taylor replies, displaying another document. Specifically targeting Westfield Heights residents. Bennett interrupts, standing abruptly. General, these operational details were handled by the police department. As councilman, I merely approved the program concept. Taylor turns to him. Is that so? She nods to Colonel Jackson, who displays a new document. Bennett's signature appears at the bottom of detailed checkpoint operating procedures, multiple pages of instructions, guidelines, target demographics. This directive specifies targeting specific neighborhoods, Taylor notes. Your signature authorizes racial profiling, Councilman. Bennett's political facade cracks completely. This is a witch hunt. This is accountability, Taylor corrects. She turns to Morales. Detective, please share what you found during your internal investigation. Morales steps forward, opening his file with hands that shake slightly. Not from fear, but from finally being able to tell the truth. 6 months ago, I noticed troubling patterns in checkpoint arrests. When I raised concerns through proper channels, I was reassigned to desk work. I continued, documenting discrepancies. He spreads documents across the table. Checkpoint officers were instructed to use different standards based on driver's race and residence. Westfield Heights vehicles received heightened scrutiny regardless of driving behavior. Wilson interrupts. That's not... Your body cam footage contradicts you, Captain, Taylor says. She plays a video on the main screen. Wilson appears on screen, instructing officers before a checkpoint deployment. His voice comes through clearly. Remember, Westfield cars get the full treatment. Make the stop stick. Bennett stands abruptly, chair scraping across the floor. I need to contact my attorney. You'll have that opportunity, Taylor assures him, after we complete this interview. She slides a folder across the table. These are just from the last 6 months. Captain Wilson's face drains of color as he opens the file. Page after page of documented violations, each one meticulously recorded, each one a nail in the coffin of his career. Before we go deeper, I would love to hear your point of view. Tell me, what part of Victoria's strategy hit you the hardest so far? Was it her patience, her precision, or the moment the Pentagon arrived? Share your thoughts in the comments. The investigation continues into the night. Military personnel process evidence with methodical precision. Technical teams analyze department servers, pulling data that will form the backbone of federal charges. Legal advisors document violations, building an airtight case. In a quiet corner of the conference room, Taylor finds Morales reviewing files, his face drawn with exhaustion and something else. Relief, perhaps, or vindication. Detective, she says, joining him. Morales looks up. Your assistance has been crucial. I should have done more sooner, Morales says, pain in his voice. You did what you could within a corrupt system, Taylor says gently. That takes courage. Morales closes the file. When I transferred to Greenfield, I had no idea. The checkpoint program was already established. They presented it as innovative community policing. When did you realize the truth? Taylor asks. Morales hesitates, old pain flashing across his features. 3 months ago, he finally says. My brother came to visit. He was stopped at a checkpoint, detained for hours. No charges, just intimidation. He stares at his hands. He's a pediatric surgeon, drives a nice car, but they only saw a black man in the wrong neighborhood, Taylor finishes softly. Morales nods. I filed complaints, used proper channels. Evidence disappeared. Witnesses changed statements. The system protected itself. That's why I'm here, Taylor says. Sometimes the system needs external pressure to change. Why you specifically? Morales asks. Why did the Pentagon send a 4-star general for a local police investigation? Because some issues transcend jurisdiction, Taylor explains. Civil rights violations impact national security. Eroded public trust undermines the Constitution we're all sworn to protect. Morales absorbs this. What happens to the officers? To Bennett? Justice, Taylor says simply. Due process. The same rights they denied others. And the people they wrongfully arrested? The lives they damaged? Part of the remedy includes case reviews, expungements, compensation. Taylor meets his eyes. Your brother's case will be among them. Morales wipes his eyes quickly. This isn't just about today, is it, General? No, she answers. It's about every day before this, and every day that comes after. Morales straightens, professional composure returning. What's our next step? Evidence compilation, Taylor says. Your testimony will be crucial before the federal grand jury. I'm ready, Morales affirms. For the first time since her arrest, Taylor smiles. I know. Dawn breaks over Greenfield Police Station. The parking lot fills with more government vehicles. FBI agents join military investigators. Justice Department attorneys arrive with subpoenas. Inside the conference room, the atmosphere shifts from investigation to prosecution. Evidence boards cover the walls. Computer screens display data analysis. Legal teams prepare documents with the focused intensity of people who know their building history. Captain Wilson sits alone, separated from his officers by both physical space and the growing realization that no one's coming to save him. Bennett's attorney arrived hours ago, whispering urgent advice that Bennett mostly ignores, still believing in his political immunity. Colonel Jackson enters with a new team. General, the Secretary of Defense sends his regards. The investigation has been elevated to Joint Task Force status. Taylor nods. Excellent. Let's proceed with the full briefing. The room fills with senior officials, military, federal, state. The governor's representative sits near the Attorney General's deputy. This isn't just a local issue anymore. This is a federal case with national implications. Taylor takes position at the head of the table. The room falls silent. Ladies and gentlemen, she begins, what started as a civil rights monitoring operation has revealed systematic constitutional violations and abuse of power. Today I present comprehensive evidence in 3 categories: visual documentation, audio recordings, and written records. She activates the main display. First, visual evidence. Dash cam footage appears. A vehicle from Westfield Heights stopped at a checkpoint. The driver, professional, polite, following every instruction, is ordered from the car without cause. The search is conducted without consent. When he questions the legality, he's arrested for obstruction. This pattern repeats across hundreds of documented stops, Taylor explains. She shows split-screen footage, white drivers passing through checkpoints with cursory checks. Black drivers from Westfield Heights face extended detentions, invasive searches, frequent arrests for identical or lesser infractions. Checkpoint camera systems captured clear racial disparities in enforcement, Taylor continues. White drivers were stopped at 8% frequency, black drivers at 82%. Bennett interrupts, desperate. Selective editing can create false patterns. These are your department's unaltered recordings, Councilman, Taylor replies calmly. Complete timestamps intact, certified by forensic analysis. She displays a heat map of checkpoint placements. The pattern is damning. Checkpoints positioned exclusively to intercept residents leaving minority neighborhoods, particularly Westfield Heights. Strategic deployment based on traffic patterns, Wilson begins, was contradicted by your own traffic study, Taylor interrupts, displaying the document, which recommended entirely different locations based on actual traffic data. Your checkpoint placement had nothing to do with traffic flow and everything to do with demographics. She moves to a new screen. Second category, audio evidence. Taylor activates an audio file. Wilson's voice fills the room, clear and undeniable. Councilman wants more arrests from Westfield. Make it happen. Officer Harris responds, even without cause? Wilson, find cause. Broken tail light. Failure to signal. Get them out of the car. You'll find something. Bennett stands. That recording could be anyone. Voice pattern analysis confirms Captain Wilson and Officer Harris, Taylor replies. Recorded during official briefings. Time-stamped, verified. She plays another recording. Bennett's voice now equally damning. The checkpoint program serves two purposes. Public safety is what we tell the press. Property values is why we're really doing it. Keep the element where it belongs. In Westfield, not in our neighborhoods. Bennett sinks back into his chair, his political career crumbling in real time. My military-grade watch recorded our entire interaction last night, Taylor explains, including unguarded comments when you thought I couldn't hear. The federal officials exchange glances. The evidence mounts beyond any reasonable dispute. Finally, Taylor continues, documentary evidence. The screen displays internal emails, text messages, official memoranda. Wilson to officers. Use checkpoint quota system as discussed. Bennett wants numbers up in Westfield demographic. Department statistics appear, arrest rates by race, search rates by neighborhood, conviction outcomes by demographic. The data reveals unmistakable discriminatory patterns. Checkpoint stops led to arrests for black drivers at 7 times the rate of white drivers, Taylor explains, for identical violations. She displays arrest reports side by side. Same violation, different races, different outcomes. White driver, warning. Black driver, arrest. Vehicle search, multiple additional charges. But the most damning evidence, Taylor says, comes from the program's origin. She reveals city planning documents, property developer communications with Bennett, financial records. Councilman Bennett received substantial contributions from developers looking to revitalize Westfield Heights, Taylor explains. Their development strategy required displacing current residents. The documents tell the story. Checkpoint harassment designed to pressure Westfield residents to leave, property values driven down, developers positioned to purchase at depressed prices. Civil rights violations driven by financial motivation, Taylor concludes. Bennett's attorney whispers urgently in his ear. Bennett shakes his head, still in denial. This is fabricated, Bennett insists, a politically motivated attack. The evidence speaks for itself, Taylor replies. And now, the final piece. She nods to Morales, who connects his USB drive to the system. Detective Morales conducted his own internal investigation, Taylor explains, documenting checkpoint operations from within. Morales stands, no longer afraid, no longer alone in his fight for justice. I collected evidence of quotas targeting specific neighborhoods. I documented systematic civil rights violations. I recorded instructions to ignore constitutional protections. His files appear on screen. Officer performance reviews tied to Westfield Heights arrest numbers, checkpoint schedules targeting black churches and community centers, internal communications discussing ways to clean up Westfield Heights. Most critically, Morales continues, I discovered that complaints about checkpoint practices were systematically buried. He displays the evidence. Complaint forms marked resolved without investigation, witness statements altered, video evidence deleted. When residents attempted to use proper channels for redress, Morales explains, the system was designed to silence them. The room falls silent as officials review the overwhelming, undeniable evidence. This operation wasn't about my personal detention, Taylor explains. I volunteered to test the system directly after months of intelligence gathering. My experience matched exactly what our investigation predicted. She turns to Bennett. Your checkpoint program violated the Fourth Amendment, targeted citizens by race, obstructed justice when challenged. The Justice Department official stands. We've seen enough. This evidence supports federal civil rights charges. Bennett looks around desperately. This is a misunderstanding. The program had legitimate public safety goals. The evidence contradicts that claim, Taylor responds. Bennett attempts one last defense. General Taylor intentionally provoked officers, created this situation through entrapment. I simply drove through a public checkpoint, Taylor replies calmly. My rights were violated because of who I am and where I live, exactly like hundreds of other citizens. She displays the final document. This is the classified Pentagon investigation authorization signed by the Secretary of Defense, launched after multiple military personnel reported discriminatory treatment at your checkpoints. The reality of his situation finally hits Bennett. He turns to his attorney in panic. The investigation is complete, Taylor announces. Federal prosecutors will now determine specific charges. The Pentagon investigator connects the final laptop. This evidence goes back 3 years. FBI agents approach Wilson, Harris, and other implicated officers. Edward Bennett, the lead federal prosecutor, announces, "You're under federal investigation for civil rights violations, abuse of power, and obstruction of justice." Bennett stands abruptly. "I need to make a statement to the press. Control the narrative." He moves toward the door, but military police stand ready. Bennett attempts to leave through the back door, where more military police wait. Justice, it turns out, has many doors, and today they're all closed to him. 1 week later, Capitol Hill. A congressional hearing room fills with observers, press, and officials. The cameras are positioned for maximum coverage. This hearing will make headlines. General Victoria Taylor sits at the witness table in full dress uniform. 4 stars gleam on her shoulders. Medals and ribbons testify to decades of service, to a career built on honor, integrity, and the defense of constitutional principles. The committee chairperson calls the session to order. This hearing on civil rights enforcement in local policing will now begin. General Taylor, thank you for your testimony today. Taylor adjusts her microphone. Thank you for the opportunity to address this committee. Please summarize the Pentagon's investigation into the Greenfield checkpoint program, the chairperson requests. 6 months ago, Taylor begins, her voice clear and measured, the Department of Defense received multiple complaints from military personnel subjected to discriminatory treatment at police checkpoints in Greenfield. Initial investigation revealed a pattern of constitutional violations specifically targeting minority neighborhoods. She presents the evidence methodically. The discriminatory checkpoint placements, the racial disparities in enforcement, the financial motivations behind the program. Our investigation confirms systematic Fourth Amendment violations, Taylor continues. Citizens were detained, searched, and arrested without probable cause. When they attempted to assert their rights, they faced increased charges and administrative retaliation. A committee member interrupts. Why did this require Pentagon involvement rather than Justice Department oversight? The initial complaints came from military personnel, Taylor explains. However, we quickly discovered that civilians faced identical treatment. We coordinated with Justice Department officials to ensure comprehensive investigation. Taylor displays the checkpoint map. The program strategically isolated the predominantly black community of Westfield Heights. Residents faced constant harassment when traveling to work, school, or shopping. The evidence unfolds on screen. Arrest statistics by race, search rates by neighborhood, conviction patterns showing clear discrimination. Most concerning, Taylor continues, was that the program operated with explicit city approval. Councilman Bennett personally directed police to target specific demographics. Another committee member leans forward. And the current status of those involved? Councilman Bennett faces federal civil rights charges, Taylor reports. Captain Wilson and 5 officers have been indicted. The checkpoint program has been permanently terminated. She pauses. Most importantly, all convictions stemming from unconstitutional checkpoints are under review for expungement. The chairperson nods approvingly. General, your decision to personally test the checkpoint system was unconventional. What motivated this approach? Sometimes systems only reveal their true nature through direct experience, Taylor explains. As a black woman and a military officer, I was uniquely positioned to document the disparity between how citizens should be treated and how they were actually treated. A supportive committee member speaks. I'd like to recognize Detective David Morales, whose internal investigation provided crucial evidence. Detective, please stand. Morales rises from the audience. The room applauds. Genuine, sustained applause for courage in the face of institutional corruption. Detective Morales risked his career to document these violations, Taylor acknowledges. His ethical commitment represents the best of law enforcement. The chairperson turns serious. What changes do you recommend to prevent similar abuses nationwide? First, independent oversight of checkpoint operations, Taylor suggests. Second, mandatory data collection on stops by demographic. Third, clear consequences for departments showing discriminatory patterns. She looks directly at the committee. Most importantly, we must recognize that constitutional rights aren't optional. They don't depend on race, neighborhood, or economic status. The hearing continues with questions and testimony. Taylor provides detailed responses, always returning to the core principle: equal protection under law. As the session concludes, the chairperson makes an announcement. Based on this investigation, we're introducing legislation establishing federal standards for checkpoint operations. The Equitable Enforcement Act will require transparency, accountability, and constitutional compliance. Outside the hearing room, Taylor meets with Morales. The committee was impressed with your evidence, she tells him. The FBI has offered you a position with their Civil Rights Division. Morales smiles, a genuine smile, perhaps his first in months. I've accepted. Change sometimes requires working from the inside. And your brother? Taylor asks. His record has been expunged, Morales confirms. He's helping organize the class action lawsuit for other checkpoint victims. Taylor nods approvingly. Justice works slowly, but it does work when good people insist upon it. When good people like you insist upon it, Morales adds. 2 months later, a community center in Westfield Heights. Residents gather for a town hall meeting with their new police chief. The atmosphere is cautiously optimistic. Years of mistrust don't disappear overnight, but healing has to start somewhere. Taylor, now in civilian clothes, sits quietly in the back. She watches as Morales, no longer a detective but a community liaison, facilitates dialogue between residents and police. The new chief announces reformed policies. Body cameras always activated, stop data publicly available, community oversight board with real authority. After the meeting, an elderly resident approaches Taylor. You're the general, aren't you? The one who brought down those checkpoints. Taylor smiles. I just helped expose the truth. You did more than that, the woman says. My grandson was arrested at one of those checkpoints. Lost his scholarship because of it. Now his record's cleared and he's back in college. I'm glad to hear that, Taylor responds sincerely. One thing I don't understand, the woman continues. You're a general. You could have used your rank from the beginning. Why go through the arrest? Because most people can't use rank or privilege to protect their rights, Taylor explains. The system should work equally for everyone, not just those with status. The woman nods thoughtfully. My grandson wants to be a lawyer now. Says somebody needs to know the law to protect the community. He's right, Taylor agrees. Knowing your rights is the first step to defending them. Outside, Morales waits to drive Taylor to the airport. Returning to the Pentagon, he asks. Yes, Taylor confirms. But our civil rights oversight won't end with Greenfield. This case established a template for identifying similar patterns nationwide. The checkpoint is gone, Morales observes as they drive past its former location. But the work continues, Taylor says. She looks out at the community. Families walking freely, residents no longer afraid of arbitrary enforcement, children playing without the shadow of harassment hanging over their futures. This is what security actually looks like, she says. Not checkpoints and harassment, just people living their lives with dignity and equal protection under the law. 6 months later, Pentagon conference room. General Taylor stands before a wall of monitors displaying checkpoint data from cities nationwide. Colonel Jackson enters with fresh reports. Implementation of the new oversight protocols is proceeding as scheduled. General, 17 departments have voluntarily reformed checkpoint practices. And the resistors? Taylor asks. Justice Department has opened investigations into 9 jurisdictions showing similar patterns to Greenfield. Taylor studies the data. Red flags highlight familiar patterns. Checkpoints concentrated around minority neighborhoods, disparate enforcement statistics, complaint suppression. The Greenfield model is proving effective, Jackson notes, identifying indicators of systemic discrimination before they become entrenched. Taylor nods. And our military personnel reports? Down 63%, Jackson confirms. The warning system works. Service members report potential civil rights issues directly to our office now. Taylor's secure phone chimes. A text from Morales. Bennett sentenced today. 5 years federal. Restitution ordered for checkpoint victims. Justice delayed but delivered. Her assistant enters. General, your next appointment is here. A young black woman in Air Force uniform enters. Lieutenant Jasmine Williams, recently detained at a checkpoint outside Maxwell Air Force Base. Lieutenant, Taylor greets her. Thank you for reporting your experience. General, Williams salutes crisply. I wasn't sure if it warranted attention until I heard about your Greenfield operation. Every data point matters, Taylor assures her. Your report matches others from that jurisdiction. Williams straightens. What happens now, ma'am? Now, Taylor explains, we follow the evidence, document the pattern, ensure constitutional protections apply equally to everyone. She moves to the window, looking out at the Pentagon courtyard where service members from all backgrounds serve a common mission. The uniform doesn't protect us from discrimination, Taylor tells Williams, but it does give us the responsibility to uphold the Constitution, for ourselves and for every citizen. Williams nods in understanding. That's why I reported it, not just for me. Exactly, Taylor agrees. Systems only change when good people recognize injustice and take action. She returns to the data displays, to the work that continues. No checkpoints, no double standards, just equal justice under law. The map of America glows on the screen before her. Each indicator represents work to be done. Communities waiting for fairness, rights requiring protection. General Victoria Taylor gets back to work. We've reached the end of Victoria Taylor's story, but the fight for equal justice never really ends, does it? If this story moved you, if Victoria's courage, Morales' integrity, or the community's resilience resonated with you, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to True Justice, and hit that notification bell so you never miss our next powerful story. Tell me in the comments, what was the most powerful moment for you in Victoria's journey? Was it her patience through the arrest, the moment the Pentagon arrived, or watching justice finally catch up with Bennett and Wilson? I read every comment, and your thoughts matter. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Let's keep these conversations going. Thank you for watching, for caring, and for believing that justice, real justice, is worth fighting for. I'll see you in the next one.